I woke up at 4 a.m. thirsty. As I shuffled toward the kitchen, I noticed a light spilling out from Ethan's room. It was strange. Ethan was usually a deep sleeper. I paused outside his door, worried by the unusual glow. As I peered inside, I saw my son standing motionless by the window. "Ethan?" I whispered, trying to rouse him. He didn't turn around or notice me. Instead, he continued to stare out into the dark night. Suddenly, he turned to me and said, "It's time." His voice was a chill ran down my spine. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just a dream or a minor disturbance. I walked back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. The strange words echoed in my mind. "It's time." What did that even mean? The following night, I decided to keep a closer watch. As the clock struck 4:13 a.m., Ethan was once again standing by the window, his silhouette as a ghostly figure against the night. I was about to approach him when I heard it, a soft, deliberate knock on the front door. My heart raced as I hurried downstairs, but when I opened the door, there was no one there, just an empty porch in the moonlight. The next morning, I questioned Ethan about the odd occurrences. He looked at me with wide, innocent eyes and claimed no memory of getting up during the night. It was unsettling, but I had to admit that children often have peculiar dreams. Night after night, the routine persisted. At 4:13 a.m., Ethan would stand by the window and the knocking on the door would start. Each time I'd rush to check, only to find nothing but silence. Exhaustion wore me down, and I started dreading 4:13 a.m. One cold night at exactly 4:13 a.m., as I watched from the doorway, Ethan raised his small hand and pressed it against the window. I froze when I saw a hand on the other side, mirroring his. The fingers were long, skeletal, and blackened with decay. The skin was pale and waxy, like someone who had been submerged in water for too long. Panic surged through me. I reached out to pull Ethan away, but he collapsed in convulsions. I scooped him up, cradling him in my arms, as the room filled with a chilling, familiar, distorted voice.
We can be together again.
It was Marie's voice, my wife who had died a year ago. Marie had suffered from a rare autoimmune disorder that made her body decay while she was still alive. I carried Ethan downstairs, my heart pounding with fear and confusion. At the foot of the stairs stood Marie, or what looked like her. Her skin was rotting, her eyes sunken, and she wore the dress we buried her in. Her limbs stretched and twisted in unnatural ways. It was her, yet it wasn't. Her mouth twisted into an eerily grin.
I've come to take our son home.
"No!" I screamed, clutching Ethan closer. "You're not taking him!" Desperation clawed at me as I fled back upstairs, Ethan in my arms. I slammed the door shut and hid by the bed, my heart pounding. Ethan, barely able to speak, said in a trembling voice, "Daddy, Mummy always comes at 4:13 and wants us to be a family again." My mind was spinning. I accidentally looked up and saw a photo of 3 of us hugging each other. April 13th, the day Marie died. How had I not realized it before? Fear seeped into my bones as the door exploded open. Marie's twisted form slithered through the bed, her eyes glowing with a sickly yellow light.
Found you!
She hissed, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. In a desperate attempt, I opened the window to climb over to the roof, trying to escape the house. The air was frigid, and a feeling of hopelessness washed over me. "Ethan, we need to go! Now!" I shouted, pulling him close. But as I turned to climb, Ethan's small hand clung to mine. "Daddy, no! I want to be with Mummy!" My heart broke. "Ethan, listen to me! That's not your mother! We need to get out of here!" Ethan's grip tightened, his eyes filled with longing and fear. "Please, Daddy! I miss her!" Before I could argue further, the temperature in the room plummeted. Marie's grotesque figure emerged from the shadows, her smile twisted into something both horrifying and triumphant.
Ethan! Mommy.
she crooned, her voice full of malice. Ethan's eyes lit up with a mix of fear and longing. He began to move towards Marie, and I felt a pang of despair. "No!" I screamed, pulling Ethan back with all my strength. "Stay with me!" But Ethan broke free from my grasp, running into Marie's cold, outstretched arms. She embraced him, her face contorted in a sickening smile of victory. Marie's limbs wrapped around us, pulling us both into her icy, hard grip. The window, once a beacon of escape, now sealed us in with Marie's chilling embrace. The last thing I remember was Ethan's terrified face turned calm, his eyes locked on me with a mix of love and fear. And now, we're a family again.
Recently, many strange things have been happening in my house. Furniture has been moved, newly bought, milk is gone, bottles of wine have been spilled, and there are scribbles on the walls with mayonnaise and ketchup saying, "I am in your room, come find me." I don't know if I am being haunted by a spirit, but everything started that night. My sister and I performed a spiritual ritual for the first time to connect with our deceased mother through an Ouija board. I held my sister's hand tightly. The air turned cold. When the candle went out, red letters appeared before me saying, "I'm in your room. Come find me." Terrified, I ran to the living room and saw the TV was on, switching channels rapidly. Turning around, I saw the words, "Marry me," on the wall. I was horrified. I thought it was my mother, but it should be someone else. Someone real in the house. I told my dad, but he didn't believe me. He thought I had watched too many horror movies and couldn't tell the difference between fiction and reality anymore. Did he think I was joking or something? I was really serious. One day, my sister and I came home and noticed someone had used the bathroom. My father came home shortly after, and I immediately took him to see. His eyes filled with panic. He started searching the house frantically. When he reached our bedroom and opened the closet, a person wearing a ninja mask and a native-style coat sprang out. He was armed with an axe and a steel wrench, and he forced us into the bedroom, locking the door. My dad told me to call the police. Luckily, the window was open, and I quickly jumped down to escape. I couldn't think of much else. I just ran as fast as I could to the neighbor's house and called the police. But by the time they arrived, he had vanished. I was chilled to the bone. He had been hiding in my bedroom watching us. I couldn't bear to return to that house. The experience haunted me. I had recurring nightmares, fearing he would come back to kill my family. So, the three of us stayed at a nearby hotel. The next couple days, my father returned to the house to get some belongings and saw a man standing by the window inside. The police arrived and found threatening messages on the walls. A knife was stabbed through a family photo with the words, "I'm still here, come find me," written in marker. Another photo was pinned with a knife bearing the words, "I will kill you all." The police continued searching the house. They discovered a fake wall in the bathroom that concealed the plumbing. Inside, they found a hollow space with oddly stacked clothes. The police officer pointed his gun and demanded the intruder to come out. Everyone was shocked when it turned out to be a 17-year-old boy named Daniel. How do I know his name? Because he is my ex-boyfriend. I dated Daniel during the Easter holiday, but it was only for a short time. I heard many bad things about him. Daniel was a strange person with antisocial behavior and had been arrested multiple times for breaking and entering and theft. I had a bad feeling, so I decided to break up with him. Then, Daniel had been hiding in my house for weeks, pretending to be a ghost to scare and watch my family without anyone knowing. Someone I knew was doing something incredibly perverted. I heard Daniel was placed in a juvenile detention center. 10 months later, his mother mortgaged her house to pay $10,000 bail for his release. I thought the nightmare was over, but it wasn't. Less than a month after being released, Daniel broke into multiple houses, stealing valuables. The Gustafson family, a young couple with 2 small children, suffered the most. Daniel armed himself with a gun and approached the Gustafson home. The pregnant mother returned home with her 5-year-old son. Instead of escaping through a window as he usually did, he used the gun to threaten them, locking the boy in a closet and tying the mother to the bed, gagging her with a sock before shooting her. The 2 children of the Gustafson family were also unlucky like their mother when encountering this prick. The husband had been trying to call his wife all day with no response and rushed home. Entering the eerily quiet house, he found his wife's body in the master bedroom. He fled the house in terror and called the police, not daring to look for his children for fear of finding them dead. Fortunately, the police quickly traced Daniel through forensic evidence at the scene. They found a wet shirt and gloves he used during the crime in the forest behind the victim's house. Police dogs followed the scent on the shirt to Daniel's nearby house. However, when the police arrived, Daniel had already fled, leading to a massive manhunt. During his escape, he broke into the homes of young girls. When discovered, he fled into the woods. Later, hijacking a woman in her car, she seized an opportunity to jump out and call for help, causing Daniel to flee again. A few days later, Daniel was caught hiding in a trash can in a nearby town. My father, upon learning that Daniel had been released and caused such a massacre, expressed his anger to the media, vowing to kill Daniel himself if he were released again. It's so cruel. Even now, I'm still haunted by the thought that he's always watching me from behind the closet door. Or maybe he's secretly watching me shower from behind that wall. Daniel was brought to trial for the murder of 3 members of the Gustafson family and received 3 life sentences. I couldn't believe that my ex-boyfriend was a murderer. It's not ghosts that are scary, but humans who are truly terrifying.
Do you know what it's like to be the only one who sees someone? It's like playing tricks on your own mind. I don't think I had the ability to see ghosts. Because if I do, I would have seen more by now. But no, I only see her, and no one else but me sees her. The first time I noticed her, I was walking along the bridge by myself. The bridge was desolate, just her and me. With her black dress and hair blowing in the wind, she followed behind me, keeping a distance of half a mile. I didn't pay much attention and continued living my life, unaware of what was slowly approaching me. After months of not seeing her, I saw her again in the supermarket parking lot one late night. Under the dim lights, she stood alone, about 200 meters away from me, but still too far to see her face clearly. However, with that familiar black dress and long hair, I was certain it was the girl I had seen on the bridge. But I started seeing her more frequently. Every time I parked in a large lot, I would see her peeking at me, still, in that black dress and hair blowing in the wind. I began seeing her in my neighborhood. At night, looking out the window, I saw her lurking in the shadows in the trees in my backyard. I called the police. They came to check the yard, while she stood still, unmoving, just staring at me. They walked around her, even touched her, but they said they saw nothing, not even footprints. I tried to push it out of my mind, but she kept getting closer and closer. I had dinner with friends at a restaurant and saw her standing across the street. I walked my dog and saw her looking at me in front of neighbors' house as I passed by, closer and closer, to the point where now I could see the expression on her face clearly. A bit of mascara running down her cheek. She was crying but smiling. She looked happy. Maybe those were tears of joy. Sometimes I thought it was the face of someone who had lost a loved one but was recalling the good times they had together. But sometimes, when I was in a bad mood, I saw it as the face of someone depressed, completely devoid of spirit. I couldn't sleep with her staring at me, following me everywhere, even when I cooked, cleaned, and watched TV. I tried talking to her, but she didn't respond. I pleaded, cried, but she never made a sound, never moved, never blinked. After that, I took leave from work. I lost the will to eat or sleep. I spent my time pacing the room, yelling at the girl at the window, then crying. I cried because I thought I was insane, completely lost my mind. I had tried to build a good life, but now it was over. All because of her. Luckily, I had Poodle by my side encouraging me. I decided to ignore her, but it was not easy. Unable to sleep, I habitually looked at the window where she usually stood, but she wasn't there. I ran to my backyard to check. Nothing. I had never been this scared in my life. Where was she? The worst part was, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. It felt creepy, but I thought again. This was my chance. I needed to sleep. And then I saw she was there. In the corner of the room, just a few steps away. My mind started spinning. She was in my house. This was a home invasion. I panicked, terrified, and disgusted. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. I didn't know if the knife would affect her, but I wanted to defend myself. I threw things at her, but they went through her. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand there throwing things uselessly. I ran to the garage, got in the car, and started it. At least I could get her out of my house. But when I looked back to reverse, she was sitting in the back seat. I was horrified, quickly opened the door, and ran. I ran far, but every time I looked back, she was there, keeping a certain distance, not overtaking or falling behind. Finally, I reached the police station. They put me in an isolation cell, about 5 square meters, with a small bed, a toilet, and a sink. I didn't know what the charge was. I was just happy to be in a place with many people, but she was still there, behind the cell door. I breathed a sigh of relief because at least she wasn't in the same area as me. I dozed off a bit. I didn't know how long I slept, but when I woke up, she was kneeling beside me with a painful smile. Before I could scream, she reached out and touched my forehead, and my brain exploded in a sharp pain, then spread down my arms and chest. My heart constricted, my breath shortened, and my vision narrowed. I woke up in the hospital. The doctor said I had a heart attack. Luckily, there were medical staff in the jail who saved me, and that happened about 6 months ago. Why am I telling this story? Because 6 weeks ago, I started seeing her again. She moved faster this time, more clearly. She looked angry, extremely furious, and she was holding something behind her back. I am not sure what it is. I don't care anymore. Soon I will take sleeping pills and go to sleep. I guess she will be standing by my bed when I wake up. I just feel sorry for my dog. I tried to give it a good life. I've left a message for my sister to pick it up tomorrow noon.
Once home, I took a shower and got ready for bed. It had been a strange night. The more I thought about it, the more I wondered why the application had triggered so many times. Wasn't it possible that there had been a malfunction, and I'd just imagined what I thought I was hearing and seeing because of the stress? After a while, I came to the conclusion that the app was bugged, and that my overactive imagination combined with my natural fear of being attacked had done the rest. I put my mobile in my pocket and made several trips to the kitchen to throw away the remains of my dinner. Suddenly, my cell phone vibrated. "You are being followed." My breathing stopped. I stood there for several seconds, staring at my screen. I raised my head slowly and looked around. I inspected every nook and cranny accessible to my view without making a move. The light in my bedroom was still off. Apart from that, I couldn't see any place where an intruder might be. I made my way discreetly toward my bedroom. Stop stressing. You said it yourself. This app doesn't work. I continued slowly and put my hand on the light switch just to the left of the door. I pressed it. I took a few steps inside, but without a doubt, no intruder, ghost, or monster had entered my room. As I returned to the living room, reassured, my gaze was drawn to the window and the night outside, and there I saw the pale face of a creature glued to the glass, staring back at me with the two whitest eyes I'd ever seen in my life. After a second spent trying to understand what I was seeing, I screamed in fear. The police immediately dispatched a patrol car after my panicked call. The two officers inspected the area around the house without finding anyone who resembled the vague description I'd given them, even though they seemed worried. I had obviously avoided mentioning the fact that what I had seen had white eyes and skin and a bald head. After a while, they had to leave and told me to call back if I ever saw someone at my window again. I closed all my shutters and spent the night awake. A knife. When the day broke, I finally got the courage to leave my house. I looked around it and saw something the police hadn't seen or hadn't wanted to tell me. Just below the window where I'd seen this thing, there were many of bare footprints, with blood going from left to right and blood spread all over the window.